Presented by Baller TV, Sports Stories with Denny Lennon.
I'm a Venice, California-born, Los Angeles-based sports fan. One that has played, coached, announced, and promoted sports my whole life. My love affair with sports started in my own backyard and has led me to this podcast. Thanks to the support of the Amateur Athletic Union in East Bay, I'm excited to bring you Sports Stories with Denny Lennon. When twin brothers Dana and David Pump were born in 1967, the UCLA Bruins and their legendary coach, John Wooden, were in the midst of the greatest run in collegiate basketball history. Between 1964 and 1975, the Bruins won 10 NCAA tournament championships in 12 years. I can tell you from my own experience growing up in Venice that it was a tremendous time to be a college basketball fan. This is our three-part series on two of the most influential figures in the history of college basketball, exclusively on Sports Stories with Denny Lennon. Yeah, that's me.
We've always had a passion for the game of basketball and people, and we've been on such a great just a run through the game of basketball. And it's done so much stuff for us, opened up so many doors around the world.
While my love of basketball played out in backyards, on Catholic school blacktops, local gyms, and parks on the west side of Los Angeles, the Pumps cut their teeth on hoops in the San Fernando Valley. Northridge Park was home base. They graduated quickly from playing and went on to coaching youth teams in various sports. We were park rats, Dana recalled in a 1987 interview with the LA Times. We were always living at the park. Our parents never wanted us separated. The boys had a knack for business and the drive to cash in.
As Dana said, we've had a good run and we know how to work together and so forth.
Industriousness, a cornerstone of Coach Wooden's seminal work, The Pyramid of Success, was the foundation for the young Pump brothers. We used to tar driveways and sell candy. People didn't want to say no to us because they knew who we were and that we were hard workers, the Pumps told the LA Times. They made connections, they put in the work, but most of all, they loved basketball. I love basketball. It's in me, Dana told the Times. My name is Pump. I even live on Celtic Street. The love of the game would take them places they could never imagine. I obviously knew who you were because I'm such a big basketball fan and came up a few years ahead of you guys. I was at St. Bernard High School, but I know you guys were in the Valley area and at Bel Air Prep and the like. But it was fun to dive into some of those names from the past that were concurrent with you guys, like Stevie Thompson and the like. And I would imagine, is that pretty much where you got your basketball Jones was when you were younger out in the Valley there?
Basketball Without Borders to, being on a yacht with Magic Johnson, my idol, my hero, and it's been a great run.
Been an unbelievable run. I think I dug into some article when you first started. I think you're both about 20, and you were talking. You're quoted in there saying that your parents were always very supportive, but you guys were self-contained.
Being a twin, you have your own teammate. You mentioned Stevie Thompson, so both Stevie Thompson's sons just grew up, and Oregon State just made the tournament. Stevie's the assistant in Oregon State, and his son had a great career there, and so when I watch basketball today and I see so many kids, I've known their parents and, maybe their parents before that. And basketball has such a rich history. And I think when Dana and I were involved in basketball in the early 2000s, it had a great run. There were so many great players in Los Angeles. And we were fortunate. A lot of them played for our AAU team. From James Harden to Paul George to Klay Thompson to Gilbert Arenas to the Holiday brothers. So LA has before us was very rich.
It was a great time. I mean, my hero was Leon Wood, who was over at St. Monica growing up, and that was got me so involved in basketball. And I can only imagine you guys had similar feelings for people in your area. What was I know you were involved a lot at your local park, and you're playing there, and then immediately turned into coaching. What was the moment that said we should run a basketball camp?
I think when we were in high school at Bel Air Prep, we started our first little basketball camp.
Yeah.
And that's where the kid Burson went, and we started it right there in Northridge Park. We really had no idea what we were doing, but we had a love for the game and a love for people. And that camp seed that we planted many years ago, it's grown in so many different places for us.
So that led, was the idea as the camp got a little bit more successful, you made relationships out in that area, and you were able to bring in some pretty good coaches to supplement what you're doing.
So like we started the basketball day camp, that led it to our scouting service that every school would subscribe to. And our motto, it's all about relationships. So once again, we start selling scouting services to all the schools. We started, evaluating players, and there's not a head coach today then we started an all-star camp. We couldn't go to superstar camp and have access, so we started our own West Coast all-star camp, and it's who's who. Then Sonny Vaccaro, who was our mentor, we started the tournament in Vegas with the big time. Unreal. With Kobe was there, and Tim Thomas. We had so many great players, and we kept opening up different doors. We started the first junior college basketball camp to give coaches access. And then we started an exposure, travel team, like Athletes in Action.
Right.
And we were playing 80 colleges in a month, and we'd have 8 teams. And then, once again, the relationships with ex-college players playing for us, ex-college coaches, like Jim Herrick. We wanted James Harden to play for us, and his high school coach, Scott Paris, says, don't talk to him during the year, but when the season's over, I'll let you sit down. So we go to Tony Romo's on Avalon in Carson, and we bring Jim Herrick to be our coach, and we hire Ed O'Bannon to be the assistant. James Harden went to Artesia. Yep. So after our meeting at Tony Romo's, obviously, we got it done, and that's how we got...
And the thing is, as Dana just said, little fish become big fish. So many of today's superstar college coaches, Dana and I can say, oh, he was the assistant coach here, he was the assistant coach there. And, we've been able to use those relationships and continue to go to those relationships and so forth. And, basketball continues to change, how the recruiting is and so forth. And, now it's very challenging for the last 2 years for kids to get a lot of exposure.
You talk about little fish becoming big fish. To an extent, that was you guys, and you always seem to pivot and be ahead of the curve at the right time. So the one thing that you preceded really social media, because when I was younger, it was all about Street and Smith, and but by the time you read the magazine, that player may or may not be that good, or they may even be injured. But you guys came out with what was the California Cager report, and that was so much more current. Like you could read that and you go, oh, they're over there at that high school. I'm going to go there and watch that.
Maybe we would go and get the Street and Smith. That was a big deal to us. Then when it came out,
it was big.
Then we go to the newsstand on Van Nuys Boulevard again.
And the other thing was Blue Ribbon with Chris Wallace. That was a big thing. But social media has changed for the good and the bad. And kids today now, if you're a 7th, 8th grader, it's amazing. I just watched the documentary on Sierra Canyon. And, Dana and I got to see it in the early stages and where it is now. It's a major program. It's a major college program. Their schedule, they fly all over the world and play.
Incredible. And
their crowds, and those kids are all superstars.
When you guys were in high school, there was something that happened, and I would have been actually in high school, I think I'm a few years ahead of you. And I always point to this one time, okay. So Coach Wooden, had his run of the game up through 75, and the Bruins even made the NCAAs again, the finals in 80. But it was 80 when Dave Gavitt formed the Big East. And that's about the time ESPN came around, and pretty soon they had that conference, and then
Big Monday.
Was Big Mondays were
you know what? It was the only show in town. It was like the Monday Night Football, Monday Night Basketball, the Big East.
But the Big East had great players.
Yeah.
You had
sure did.
Mullen,
Patrick Ewing. I mean, it was
Syracuse was loaded.
Yeah, it was unbelievable because ESPN built up Big Monday. And then Dana said, you're in the East Coast, you're based in the Garden, is the Mecca.
It's as that built, and you get through 84 stuff. I almost point to you guys as the West Coast response. In other words, like I felt the best players in LA, Stevie Thompson, Earl Duncan, were suddenly going back east, and that blew my mind. I was like, what? You're not going to UCLA? But somehow our star players in LA and the Valley needed to have a place, because there really wasn't that much programming before you guys launched your...
No, but I think the Big East was such a draw for so many kids because of the TV and so forth. And I think, it had a really good run, but then, the Pac-10 before now it's the Pac-12 started blowing up, and a lot of the kids would start staying local, and and then when Paul Westhead was at LMU, he had something special going on there.
And UCLA wasn't getting the players then. They had Hazard, and they had Reggie Miller. They won the NIT, which was so different. And then Southern Cal, George Raveling comes in, and Hank and Bo go to LMU.
Yep.
And, Oregon State had Gary Payton. And Oregon wasn't a dominant force like it is now. But, Jason Matthews goes to Pitt, during that era. So a lot of guys, Austin Crocier goes to Providence,
Right. Yeah, that was such a draw. You had your camp going, and that started to really grow. And then you had your travel team. And then you started to host an event. Is that right? You started to host a tournament?
Yeah, we had a tournament at LMU called the Best of the West, and then we had a tournament in Vegas. So we had a circuit before there really was a circuit.
Exactly.
For the kids. And basically, like I tell everyone, all we were was a platform. And
you built a platform.
Yeah, we built a platform to help kids and so forth. And now it's changed. All the major shoe companies have their own platform.
Right.
And we were like an independent before that happened.
So was your first affiliation with a shoe, LA Gear?
No, it was Nike.
It was Sunny. Then it was LA Gear. Then it was Adidas. But LA Gear came to us with Leonard Amato, who went to aviation high school.
Yeah.
And Leonard said, we want to legitimize the brand, and we did some shoe deals with Leonard. It was like Shaquille at LSU, Dale Brown.
Harold Miner at USC.
Yeah.
and so forth. And there's some great stories over those years. LA Gear, they were having some technical issues with their shoes and stuff, but it was fun.
What was their technical issue?
I mean, on a major TV, I think it was the Tennessee game, a shoe blew out, and
the original Zion moment.
Yeah, exactly. And they had shoes that lit up and so forth.
They sure did. Yes, I remember that.
John Calipari, the head coach at Kentucky, he was at UMass, and we gave him his first shoe deal, and we laughed today. It was $5,000, and we took 3 and gave him 2. And I actually went with them to the Alaska Shootout, and he had a Camby and Lou Rowe, and that was a fun time.
Hello and welcome to the SSDL post-show show of all shows. I'm Chris M. Allport and joined at the SSDL Sports Desk by the former Cal Baptist Lancer basketballer, the 2010 All-State selection from San Francisco City College, Marley Rice.
Thanks, Chris. Today we are not coming to you from the 7428 in the Centinela Adobe Corridor, which we all know is in the shadow of LAX, but instead we are broadcasting from the brand new Alpha Command Unit campus in beautiful downtown Burbank.
It's quite a joint. I hope you enjoyed Straight Outta Northridge, Part 1 of SSDL's Docuseries interview with basketball pioneers and philanthropists Dana and David Pump. We did the interview at the Verge Company's historic Samuel Goldwyn Beach House in Santa Monica. Part 2 will be released on August 19th on YouTube and LA36 Cable TV. Now it's time for the soon-to-be wildly popular segment, What Did Dan Patrick Learn? Yeah, I mean, it's a straight ripoff from the Dan Patrick Show, but rumor has it that Dan Patrick, the legendary sportscaster, has become a huge fan of sports stories since he found out that SSDL won not just one, but 2 Telly Awards for our mini documentary on Mr. Clutch himself, Jerry West.
That's right, Chris. Sports Stories won a silver Telly for Best Online Documentary and a bronze for Best Sports Feature. And as we all know, the Dan Patrick Show has been nominated for multiple sports Emmys, but has yet to win one. Dan Patrick and the Danettes are kind of like the Susan Lucci of sports Emmys.
Well, okay then, Marley. What did Dan Patrick learn?
He learned that in the interview, Dana was on screen left and David was on screen right.
That's all?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, moving right along, we have to recognize the medal winners from the United States at the 2020 Tokyo Olympic Games that have also been guests on Sports Stories with Denny Lennon.
Totally. First off, big congrats to Abby Weitzel, who won silver in the 4x100 medley
Woo, woo.
and a bronze in the 4x100 freestyle. Abby, of course, was an AAU Sullivan Award nominee in 2020, which was produced by SSDL.
Hey, we do some cool stuff here. The next winner to recognize is another AAU Sullivan Award nominee, Grant Holloway. The Wonder Boy won the silver medal in the 110-meter hurdles.
He was awesome. And finally, the greatest volleyball player of all time is now the first coach to take the USA women's indoor volleyball team to a gold medal. The one and only Karch Karai, who sat down with Denny for an epic 5-part series last year, furthered his legendary status in the sport by leading the women's team to the promised land.
I'm just so happy for this team and these amazing women in this program. I told them not only are they badasses, but they are now gold medalists!
Well, that'll do it for this post-show show of all shows. We will see you again after part 2 of the Pump Brothers docuseries on Sports Stories with Denny Lennon.
Sports Stories with Denny Lennon.
Kick it out, Buck! Yeah, kick it out!